What's up with it? It's 2DB. I know I seem like I was Jesse, but my bad. Um, if you don't know what this video is about, it's about what's been going on YouTube. It's about, the PewDiePie incident. So, just to give it energy, because I believe that it is something that needs to be talked about so people can understand the context of the word that was used and the racial slur that was used, because it is a racial slur no matter how you really think about it or not. The fact is, it's a racial slur. I think I'm more shocked than anything, and the reason why, because it lets me know how a lot of times people on YouTube don't really, or YouTubers, don't really understand the depth behind the word. And that is because the majority of people who's talking about it right now or has been talking about it, it haven't really affected them personally, or I haven't really felt like an attack on them personally, because it has never been like a person of color who really talking about the situation. It has always been like scares, drama alert, H3H3. It's always like these YouTubers. FaZe Banks talked about it, gave his opinion on it, and it never really has been black people talk about it. Run JD Run talked about it. I think that's his name. He's also a YouTuber. He talked about it. He was black, and he mentioned like all the facts, which I'm about to do. And I'm doing it because I am black, and I'm doing it also not only because I'm black, because it affects me personally, because that word just shouldn't be used. Period. 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 It shouldn't be used for people. Sorry about that. Don't know why I left off it, but I made this video. I'm gonna repeat it, because I am black, and that word affects me personally. Not only because it's the ADR, that stuff doesn't really matter. I think what really matters is the comfortability of just saying it and try to explain it to a point where like people who it really don't affect personally will make an opinion. Not saying that people is not entitled to their opinions. People are entitled to their opinions. People are entitled to the First Amendment, the freedom of speech. That is totally fine. But when it's a word and it's defined specifically to a certain race, not all races, but a specific race, and it's basically saying that because it's a word that we have no right, people of color have no right to be offended by it. Now that part is extremely wrong, because yeah, you are entitled to freedom of speech, but just because you are entitled to freedom of speech doesn't mean that people should not be offended by stuff that you say just because you got the freedom to say it. Period. Because it's factual that the people who did use these derogatory words was to degrade black people. Period. Period, point blank. And do I personally think PewDiePie is a racist? No, absolutely not. I just think that personally he's ignorant. I think that a lot of people on YouTube is ignorant, because if you really looked at it, like black people really just kind of stayed out of the situation, because we knew, like, well, I'm gonna just speak for myself. Me as a black person, I knew personally the reason why. Well, I personally feel like the reason why black people hasn't really been putting anything out is because it shouldn't have existed. It shouldn't have existed in the first place, because nobody should be comfortable enough to just say that stuff and then try to explain why they say it. Another reason is because the excuse behind the situation. You said the N word. You said it. Nigger. He said nigger. And what he said afterwards was asshole. So basically, the apology was, I apologize for saying it, but here's the thing. I was just thinking about like a word. I was just thinking about the worst word I can think of. Now, if I had to argue that, it is a lot of different minorities, right? It's a lot of different minorities out there that has derogatory words. That's racist. Other races also have racial slurs. It's not just nigger, it's different ones. It's different ones. It's one that's put towards Asians. It's one that's put towards Latinos or Latinas. It's some that push towards like Arabians or Indians or anything. It's always something, a racial slur is used, rather you're a minority, so for him to just say, oh, the first thing that was on his mind, that was the hurtful word, was nigger. And that itself is kind of like self-explanatory. So you went from nigger to asshole, and then after that, it was just like, if I offended anybody. Now that's the thing. If you offended anybody, you apologize for it. Instead of just saying you're sorry. That's a word that should not be used. Like, it's okay to just be like, yeah, this word is used a lot. Which it is. It's used a lot under the radar. But once it become underrated, you got to accept the consequences for whatever it is. I think people is upset because people is acting on what this individual has said, which in my personal opinion, should it happen? Yes, it's definitely, because it's going to happen. And I think the reason why is because when you personally and this what I learned so far in this thing called life. Whenever somebody does something bad to you, or somebody says something they shouldn't have no business saying, or they do something that's just wrong, period, wrong, anything, in order for that person to feel it, you go for their money. You go for their money. And the reason why is because money is how you survive. So when you're touching something based off survival, based off something wrong that you're doing, you're gonna learn the lesson regardless. You're gonna learn regardless. It's not gonna take an apology, because the first thing about even apologizing is forgiving yourself first. You can't apologize for your fans. You gotta apologize for yourself. You have to forgive yourself. And I think that's why that whole apology, to me, it was just like, it wasn't scripted, but it wasn't coming from here, because maybe his camp or whoever's around him, they just say it a lot. It just rolled off the tongue. Shouldn't he got upset? Shouldn't he raged? It's just was that. Yeah, and that was it. If I haven't explained it, I'm gonna get to the root again. So let me remind you. The N-word should never be used for people who really don't understand the depth that it caused by a certain race. Me personally, it affects me because I am black. Okay? I'm black. And history, just factual, because of the color of my skin, people who was not the color of my skin was using the word to ridicule people that is the color of my skin, to degrade people who are the color of my skin. I am not saying that you don't have the right to say the word. What I'm saying is the word is wrong because it is a racial slur. A racial slur. You are basically saying a word that is only for That's selective race. And that is why it's wrong. Period, point blank. Rather it's a different race saying it with an A, rather different race saying it with an ER. It is wrong. It is no such thing as a context of a word. This would be totally different if you was in court and the judge tells you to say it, or the person tells you to say it, because they're trying just to figure out exactly how it was said or whatever the case. They just want you to say it. And then even if you're uncomfortable saying it, they just want you to say it. If it's not on those terms, or if it's not a black person, just be like, hold on, what'd you say? Like, or that person said what to me? No, you can say it. Tell me what you said. And then you say it, and then you just, that's it. But it shouldn't be used like for something like that. The whole thing was just wrong. It was just wrong. And hold on. Let me take the charger thing out. This is a raw video too. When people who talking about, like I said before, people who talk about it, it's not us. It affected me a lot. And what I was doing is copy and pasting on, main what's the name, just to let them know it shouldn't be told, period. It shouldn't be said, period. It shouldn't be promoted as it is without it being like a response like this, without it being like somebody that it does personally affect. Because I watched PewDiePie. PewDiePie was always like controversial, but this was just like it was no excuse to do this. And I think being a troll is a very difficult job. No matter if you like it or not, a troll job is extremely dangerous, because it's one thing to be a controversial troll. It's another thing to just be a racist troll. And the thing is, PewDiePie is kind of like the in-between, because I personally don't believe that he's a racist. I do believe that it should affect, it should affect his growth, because he said something that was a racial slur, period. It was a racial slur, period. The crazy thing is, the other person who he was shooting at, see, people don't never really think about the outcome of stuff. The other person that he was shooting at, rather it was, I don't know if it was online, but if it was online, the person that he was shooting at could have been black. He could have been black, and that's a new eye opener. He could have been black. So like he could have personally took it, he could personally take that as like a personal attack, as I did. And the reason why is because no matter if he like it or not, he has a big brand on YouTube. He got, I think, over 40 million subscribers on YouTube. So he has a more of a responsibility to understand what's right, to understand what's wrong. And that was just wrong. And it was put on his shoulders because he got that high volume. So yes, the press is going to take it. Everybody's going to take it. And Scarce, and I watched Scarce, and Scarce was kind of saying the same thing. Oh, people was taking it way out of proportion. No, bro, it's not out of proportion. I think people is not talking about it enough, to be honest. Personally, because it's not a lot of black people talking about it, and it affects us the most. Because it was a racial slur from somebody who wasn't of our color, using the word as if, that person was the worst word that he can think of, which is the next word was asshole. So it wasn't any other racial slur. It just specifically had to be the N-word, had to be nigger. So no, it's definitely not blown out of proportion, no matter how much people say, in my personal opinion, that's cool to have that, but factually, no, it's not blown out of proportion, because it doesn't affect you personally. Like I said, it affects me personally due to the fact that it's history behind it. It's history behind it, and the way stuff is going, the history is still kind of repeating itself. It's just in a new generational way. So like, it's like little stuff changed, but not like the big issues, which is conversation about it. This is just a conversation about it. This thing been going on for like 15 minutes long. I'm sorry, but it's because people lack conversation. And I think the best thing to just get this out the way is conversation, because people really just don't understand like that it's just wrong. That is just wrong. When you say something like that, there's consequences for it. No matter what everybody else's personal opinions is, you have to understand that it's a racial slur. Like, it's a definition, a dictionary, racial slur. People can't just, oh, hey, let's just change the definition. Okay, yeah, let's do it. So people always go off like, I'm just going by the books. Like, if I didn't have no personal like feelings about it, it's a racial slur. So it shouldn't be said. It shouldn't be said at all. No matter how people feel about it or whatever, rather you say freedom of speech and stuff like that, people just going to keep saying that. But like, the definition is a racial slur towards Black people, period, point blank. And that is why I was offended by it. And that is why I'm just going to forever be offended by that word. And it should not be said, because if I don't say nigger, why would you say it? And then, to be biased, if I say nigga, why should you say it? Is it because I'm saying it? Or like, I can tell my partner, oh, what's up, nigga? And then you can just join the conversation, who's not of my color, and just be like, what's up, nigga? And I don't know you. Like, I'm going to take some type of offense to it because personally, I don't know you. I don't know why you're saying it. Be like, oh, you just said it to him. He's like, yeah, because I'm like, that's a different story. If anybody want to have a conversation or a debate about this, I do not mind. Not really. Well, it could be a debate, but I don't mind just having a conversation about this period, because like, just general, we are people living in this world. And in order to understand people more, is to have a conversation like this with other people and have a conversation about race, because race do exist. Sexuality do exist. Different ethnicities exist. Like I just said the same thing twice. But anyways, yeah, that's it about the PewDiePie situation, which shouldn't really have been so complex. It should have just been, yeah, wrong is wrong, right is right. And that situation was freaking wrong. All right, so like this video, you can comment whatever, however you feel. I read my comments. So, all right, see you later. Yada.